Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We thought it was appropriate to put in the programme a press conference just to give an update to the people of St Helena as to the FAM. I'm not going to say an awful lot other than a huge thank you. A thank you to obviously the team coming from London, Adam, Ben and Rahi, for all their commitment to learning more about St Helena. But a huge thank you also to ministers, elected representatives and SHG for the work that goes into preparing for visits like this. It's not something you can do without an awful lot of effort, and it's obvious that that has been taken forward. But also thank you to everybody with whom we've engaged. One of the things we've tried to do is make sure that the FAM got to see as much of St Helena, beneficiaries of the various programmes, but just ordinary St Helenians as possible. And I know they've seen an awful lot in a short space of time. And I hope that as a consequence of that, Adam and the team feel that they've got a really good understanding of St Helena, the challenges we face, but also the opportunities that exist here. You know, I think I said on a radio interview recently, I'm an eternal optimist, and I think there are reasons to be optimistic. There are challenges, but I think there is every opportunity for us to make progress. Thank you. That's it from me. I shall now hand over to Adam.
Great. Thank you very much. And if you can't hear me, just shout up. So it's great to be back in St Helena, and actually having this session today as a government sector is really important, because one of the things we want to ensure is that we're open and accessible. So we've been getting all over the islands. We've been spent time with politicians, but also businesses, and it's just everyday saints, and making sure that we're open and accessible. And all I can say is thank you very much for the very warm welcome. I really appreciate it. Last time I came here was in December 2019, and a lot has changed. Obviously COVID, that was a huge shock for the whole world. The ministerial system, but also a new governor as well. All I can say is I have a huge amount of admiration for how the community works together generally, but actually how you all came together during the pandemic. It was really admirable. And whilst I would say the UK provided things like finance, the PPE, testing supplies, the vaccines, it was the way in which St Helena used it, which was the most important thing. And just take vaccines. I think you had the highest vaccine coverage across all of the overseas territories, and possibly one of the highest in the world. That's because of the way saints took to it and came together and really looked after each other. We've spent a lot of time working with the Chief Minister and her ministerial team, elected members, members of the public service, business everyday sector, and that's really important for us. As the government says, not only just to understand the challenges, but also the opportunities facing the island. And whilst there are lots of challenges, and we all know what they are, particularly things like around the cost of living, which is really impacting people living in small island communities, there is lots of good things going on in this island. I've seen lots of innovation going on in the government, thinking of different ways of doing things. I've seen some exciting businesses, which should really need to think about telling that story about how saints are doing things for themselves. And this passion really gives me hope for St Helena. And what I'm committed from my side is working out how we can help that and make that. And we're 100% committed to making the ministerial system work in St Helena. And that means decisions sit locally and accountability sits locally. And we've had members of the community coming up to us without any prompting, saying that they're really supportive of the ministerial system. And what I think it's worth just bearing in mind is there's a wider context to this. So for the outside world, they understand that when they speak, they can identify a chief minister or the minister for X who to engage with. So it's really useful for brand St Helena. And one of the things we've really enjoyed is the passion coming from all elected members, but particularly the ministerial team for their individual portfolios, and we really enjoyed that coming through. I think we are also looking to broaden UK government support beyond the FCDO. So if you look at a couple of examples which have worked really well, so the UK Health Security Agency, they've put a lot of work into supporting the health system on St Helena, that's paid dividends quite quickly. There's a partnership with Hampshire Police, which we're looking to develop, and if you look at the supports on the town trucks, there are things which we can use as a model for the partnership, and moving things like the EDF capital programme forward. St Helena as a community will need to come together and make some very tough decisions on issues as you shape your future, and just make sure that opportunities don't pass the other by, and you deal with some of the biggest ticket issues you're facing. So, things like the demographic trends, immigration, on how you allocate resources within governments and spend those, but also agriculture and land use. That's something that every day seems to be highlighting to us. But I'm sure that we can make these work both by sort of tapping into the talent that's in the community, working hand in hand with the ministers, and I can commit that we will be working in partnership and respect with the ministerial team and the wider government in St Helena. We don't have I'd like to be able to come here and say we have a final decision on what the settlement will be going forward, but what we haven't been doing this week is going through budget lines one by one. We've been talking about budget, but one of the things we've been doing is trying to get a feel for the challenges and opportunities facing the island. So what I have said to the ministerial team and elected members is, my team will always fight the hardest for St Helena, and we understand that we have some very serious responsibilities, but there are lots of things we can achieve in partnership with St Helena. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, it is indeed a pleasure to obviously have the BAM team here on Ireland with us. Thankfully, even though JMC was cancelled last year, at least it gave me some chance to meet the whole team actually that's here now, whilst in the UK. And whilst in the UK, for me, it was good to better understand how the UK government and FCDO works. I'm sure, as Adam has just said, coming back here to St Helena for Adam, but for Rahi, for example, it's his first visit. It is always nice to see in context what St Helena is offering, what it is that we hope to achieve, and indeed the challenges that we're facing. It's pleasing to hear Adam talk about the enthusiasm of the ministerial team. We've been working very hard to try and put together a vision that is sustainable. We understand there will have to be some flexibility within it, but it's all the key ticket items that's coming up on our agenda. It's been like that for the first year, and indeed it's definitely going to follow through into our second year. So when I talk about big ticket items, I'm talking about our communications, I'm talking about renewable energy, I'm talking about access, both shipping as well as air. Because I think when you look in the big scheme of things, we are trying to push towards St Helena economically being in a better place. It is those three elements that will help to put us on a firm foundation. It's not easy. It's always moving. There's always things happening that changes as we go along. And yes, we have to be flexible, but we also need to stick to the task at hand, unless we could be seen as using funds to look at small projects, which takes us off the ball, which is all those big ticket items that we've been talking about. It is wonderful that the team have seen two of our key areas, which is obviously health and social care. And this morning they went to the school and had a chance to speak to parents, and of course they had the chance to talk to students as well. So they understand exactly what it is that St Helena, what the challenges are, and I'm sure private sector did the same in the chamber and indeed other forums. I do hope that the message comes across clear from the three of us that teamwork is important and that we need to continuously work together if we want the best outcomes for St Helena. I just would like to take this opportunity to remind the listening public and indeed the community of St Helena that it was our vision, written and published almost a year ago now, that we were working towards a sustainable environment that creates opportunity and inspires social and economic progress, ensuring a better quality of life for all. And I can assure you that as elected members, FCDO and obviously the government team, public service included, that is the actual background or the backdrop to what it is that we're putting forward as our priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're now open for questions.
You did touch a couple of times on TCs and TC budget. And one impression one can get from the way it operates at the moment is you'll have somebody come in on a short-term contract, 2 or 3 years, to push this along or that along or development. Then they're gone at the end of their contract. Somebody else comes in, either takes over or does something similar. And in the process of things coming, people coming and going, there's a distinct lack of continuity, change of emphasis, change of the way things are working, which can be confusing and not helpful overall. I'm not saying things should never change, but it's good to develop things in a more logical way, or smooth way. Have you ever, I wonder if this had ever been a subject of thought or conversation, discussion, and if you'd ever thought of having a more formalised team of experts instead of TCs coming and going. Obviously there'd be people coming and going from a team, but there would be a central pool of expertise, if you like, instead of individual.
Tricky one, because there's a couple of sides to this. So first of all, let's just say you had a community of 4,500 people anywhere in the world. You know, whether it's St Helena or a village in England or a town in Scotland, all over those. The community of that size is never going to have all of the skills it needs. So it's always going to have to bring in those skills. And it's striking the right balance between making sure you bring in skills, but also training people up and giving them the opportunity to learn from people coming in. And that's very important. I think, if I could be really candid, I think the mistake the Foreign Commonwealth Office made in the past was trying to be the expert on all of these things. Where actually, my view on it is actually if you have a staid set of experts, they become staid and not necessarily experts anymore or up to date. Whereas actually what we've seen is we've brought in the Ministry of Justice to support the prison here, or we brought in the Health Security Agency, or the Treasury providing support on things like financial services to ensure you have people who are going to come and commit to St Helena, buy into the community, and stay for a sufficient amount of time. And I've come across quite a few people who came here as TCs 10, 20, 30 years ago because they've fallen in love with St Helena. I can understand that. Even I was speaking to someone the other day who's the right as a pharmacist, and he's doing that long-term planning where he had a succession of short-term pharmacist support. So there are people here who are committed to doing that, but it's making sure you're building up the institutional knowledge, not just based on Joe, Fred, or Sally or something like that. So it's a mixture of getting the right continuity, but not having it too stay and stuck in the mud.
I will jump in on this one as well. One of the key elements of maintaining a continuity, but continuity that's appropriate to the territory, are the head of the public service and the financial secretary, both of whom are saints. And I think that is actually a huge credit. St Helena has people with that talent to take those positions, who are absolutely fit and capable of taking those roles. And I think that helps soften some of the fluctuation, because of course you have that continuity and that understanding. I have come from the Falkland Islands. All the key appointments in the public service, bar 2, were TCs. That there are saints in these key positions, I think is one of the major advantages that St Helena actually has in smoothing out. I accept there is this chain person, but in smoothing that out to make sure what we get is the right representation.
Just to add to that, what I've seen here, I'm genuinely impressed by the talent I see in the community. I'd say with this sort of community of 4,500, I don't think they'd have all the skills and talent that we see in St Helena. So, I was in the hospital this week, you look at the lab there, the range of services they can offer and run by saints as well. And I can tell you, because we were working very closely with the team, HSA team, St Helena set up through remote training the sort of on-island PCR testing way before lots of communities in the UK, let alone small island communities. So there's a lot of talent for a very small community, and St Helena should be really proud of that.
I think I just add, as we move forward and we want to see communications improve, we'll probably see some of that calm down a bit as well, because then we'll do, like you just said, COVID taught us a lot as well, so virtual training, etc. will hopefully see more people become upskilled while they're still here in St Helena, and then you don't have to make the journey all the time. So, but I think the training that's happening as well, we are hoping to have that in respect of policing, but also health and now education coming on those things. So hopefully those kind of things will help to see some retention in some of those service providers.
So can I just pick up on that? So is the education side of things going to follow the path of health department in UK HSA in that kind of country?
So that's already started. Actually, those discussions have started. It's not confirmed, it's not all done, but we've been speaking with FCDO colleagues about that prior to the BAM visit, actually. So yes, I know education is on the road to that.
Building up those institutional links, which I think go beyond just individuals as well.
That is news, and it's good news.
In the past, you had I'll choose the police officer as an example. A police officer comes from, shall we say, Greater Manchester Police. When they have an issue that they want expert advice on, they reach back to their old police force. And then that changes, and somebody from Newcastle or the Met, so they'll reach back to Newcastle or the Met. I think the initiative to twin the OTs with counties and for St Helena, Hampshire, and Edmund and I both Hampshire police, will hopefully bring that continuity and that understanding between people, but also scaling it to what St Helena needs. I mean, solutions for Hampshire, you're talking about a massive UK county, but there are niche skills which absolutely can be shared and to mutual benefit.
Right, I'm just conscious we've only got a couple of minutes left, and we're good to get one more question in.
Left on first, and then we'll do the time left on.
Okay, no worries.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
So, unfortunately, those questions for you again. So, you had a meeting with Chamber of Commerce and local business owners. What were their views on the relationship between SHG and the private sector? Is it enough support given to allow the entrepreneurs, especially the younger ones, to be successful and take the
Yeah, I think for me that was a really useful meeting, because they were talking about all the challenges in here, and I think there's St Helena had its challenges before COVID, and then COVID came along and I think it's exacerbated that. So to hear firsthand what was happening. But what was really interesting is there was a couple of people in who also challenged some of there was a lively discussion in the room about the opportunities and the different way of doing things. And for me, it's the pivotal role that the private sector has to play in St Helena, and how it can grow and how it can work together as well. So obviously there's always going to be competition in the private sector, but how the different sectors can work together, like tourism, like farming, how that can happen, bringing them together. I think it's invaluable for us to have these separate meetings, because we spend a lot of time in the government, but it's important for us to hear firsthand from the businesses. So I want to keep that part of it.
I think just to add on to that, if you don't mind, Adam, I think what we're trying to do right now is to become that St Helena government is the enabler and the private sector drives it along. So that is why I talked about the 3 big ticket items. So if we can put that platform there, then it's also the responsibility and the teamwork for St Helena government and the private sector to take St Helena forward. It shouldn't be what St Helena government doing, it should be what are we doing together to get a better St Helena.
Okay, thanks guys. So we've just got about 2 minutes left. Oh, Mike, very quick question.
No, thank you very much. It has to do a little bit with what you call reflexivity, which is the gap between expectation and reality. In St Helena, that gap between expectation and reality has historically been substantial. And this also is sometimes dependent on the difference in thinking between the capital expenditure budget and the budget for actually maintaining these fantastic toys we are donating. And that also adds to the gap between reality and the expectation. What can you do and what advice can you give to St Helena how we can get a bit closer. Either is the prediction, the expectations too high, or the reality outcome too low, or both.
Yeah, and if you look at just take some public services, there are things that happen on St Helena that people in the UK could only dream of. You know, in terms of let's take a medical waiting lists, or even something as simple to have a CT scan that would take a lot longer to arrange in the UK. I think, but that's the reality of living in small communities. You can make things work faster, which is a good thing. That's a real discussion I think you need to have in the community about what your expectations are and, as you say, what the delivery is. In terms of capital, I think we need to come together and make sure that any investments we have are genuinely future-proofed, proportionate for St Helena, but also thinking intelligently. You know, are we designing things which are going to have a huge maintenance cost, or actually things which are built with, say, renewable energy as part of it, or intelligent ways of managing water supply. So I think, yeah, the challenge is on us to come up with that. But I'm determined, and I know the Chief Minister and Governor are, that we will get that money spent. And then we can think, once that money is all spent, we can think about what the future needs of the island are going forward. Because it doesn't just stop there.
I just was going to say, I think we all know we are very quick here on St Helena to talk about, this works really well in UK and this works really well this place. But then sometimes we only look at the little piece that looks really glittery. And then when we look, so for instance, I'll use this as a real example. We're always talking about our salaries, and I have to say, yes, we'd like to see that increase. But we'd like to see what the salaries are in the UK, but do we want their cost of living? So it's about the balancing act and making sure we're looking at the holistic picture. So I would agree with you, Mike, there's a lot of work to be done together here on St Helena to determine what that whole picture looks like, instead of just picking pieces off it and looking for the best in everything, and not actually looking at what the reality of it is.
I think the only point I would make is we need to find a way of allowing the natural abilities of saints to be part of this solution. I do feel there needs to be more success in helping St Helenians to succeed. And I know that's something that we're all committed to trying to achieve that, because no saints want to achieve that for themselves. And so really it is about developing the various elements that allow that natural ability, capability of saints. And I've seen it, sorry I keep mentioning the Falklands, but I've seen a lot of saints in the Falklands. They achieve great things. The saints here achieve great things, but we need to give them the platform from which to do that.
And celebrate the successes as well, because there are lots of successes.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. We've got a packed schedule, so we're going to have to call it that.